The year is 2025, and the world is still baffled by one of the greatest mysteries known to mankind, the Bermuda Triangle. A strange force that causes planes and boats to disappear without a trace. Yet another plane has disappeared over the Bermuda Triangle, but what really happened to it? This is the story of how a small plane flew into the path of danger and vanished into thin air. It was just an ordinary day at Miami International Airport as thousands of people bustled through the terminal, carrying their luggage and rushing to their gates. Among them were two best friends, Lisa and Sarah, who were taking a much-needed vacation after months of hard work. They had planned this trip for months and were excited to finally explore the mysterious Bermuda Triangle, a region in the North Atlantic Ocean known for its strange and unexplained phenomena. Despite warnings from locals about the area's dangers, they were determined to uncover the truth behind the Bermuda Triangle's reputation. After checking in and going through security, they made their way to Gate 18, where their flight to the Bahamas would depart shortly. As they settled into their seats, the pilot came over the intercom to inform passengers about the flight's duration and any potential turbulence they might encounter. But what the pilot did not mention was that they were about to enter one of the most dangerous regions of ocean known to man. As the plane soared above the turquoise waters of the Caribbean Sea, Lisa and Sarah couldn't help but marvel at the beauty of the ocean below them. They chatted excitedly about their plans for the week, which included swimming with dolphins, exploring ancient ruins, and relaxing on the beach. But as the hours passed, a sense of unease began to creep over them. The sky, which had been clear and sunny, suddenly darkened, and the wind began to pick up. Before long, the plane was caught in the middle of a violent storm. The sudden change in weather was unsettling, but the pilot remained calm and assured the passengers that everything was under control. However, as the storm raged on, Lisa and Sarah noticed something strange. The other passengers had remained silent and still, their faces pale with fear. Had they known something that she didn't? Were they all heading towards certain doom? As the plane struggled to navigate the turbulent waters, Lisa and Sarah held onto their seats for dear life. The storm seemed to go on forever, and when it finally began to subside, they were relieved beyond measure. But as the plane emerged from the clouds, they saw that they were no longer over the clear blue waters of the Caribbean. Instead, they were surrounded by a thick fog that seemed to swallow the horizon. The pilot's calm demeanor had vanished, replaced by a frantic urgency as he struggled to find their way out of the fog bank. But the longer they stayed in the mist, the more Lisa and Sarah began to worry. Was this just a navigational error, or was something more sinister at play? As the minutes turned into hours, their fear grew. Where were they? How long would they be stuck in this fog? And what if they never made it out? Suddenly, the plane lurched violently, breaking through the fog and revealing a sight that made Lisa and Sarah gasp in horror. Before them lay a vast expanse of churning waters, dark and menacing, stretching as far as the eye could see. They were now in the heart of the Bermuda Triangle. Despite the danger, Lisa and Sarah couldn't help but be awestruck by the raw power of nature around them. They knew they were in uncharted territory, but they were also excited by the adventure, eager to see what mysteries the Bermuda Triangle held. However, the excitement soon faded when they realized that their plane was starting to descend rapidly. The pilot's panicked voice filled the cabin as he struggled to regain control. The other passengers were now screaming in terror, their faces ashen with fear. Lisa and Sarah clung to each other, their hearts pounding in their chests as they plummeted towards the turbulent waters below. With a sickening lurch, the plane hit the waves, sending spray and debris flying through the air. Lisa and Sarah braced for impact, their bodies tense and ready for the inevitable. The windshield shattered, sending shards of glass flying everywhere. Water rushed into the plane, quickly filling the cabin and knocking the wind out of them. The last thing they remembered was the sound of the other passengers screaming as the plane began to sink. Then everything went black. When Lisa and Sarah regained consciousness, they found themselves surrounded by water, the wreckage of the plane floating around them. They had survived the crash, but they were now in the middle of the Bermuda Triangle with no sign of land and no way to contact the outside world. Panic threatened to overwhelm them, but they knew they had to stay calm if they wanted to survive. They helped each other to surface and began swimming away from the sinking plane, away from the Bermuda Triangle. But the water was cold and unforgiving, and the strong currents threatened to pull them under. Just when they thought they couldn't go on any longer, they saw a faint light in the distance. With renewed hope, they swam towards it, their limbs growing weaker with each stroke. As they approached the light, they could hear the sound of waves crashing on shore. They had found land, but it wasn't the Bahamas. Struggling to haul themselves onto the beach, they collapsed onto the sand, exhausted and shivering. They had survived the crash and the treacherous waters of the Bermuda Triangle, but they were now on a deserted island with no one around them. Fear threatened to consume them, but they knew they had to stay strong. They had made it this far, and they weren't going to give up now. As the night wore on, they huddled together for warmth, sharing stories and jokes to keep their spirits up. They knew they were alone, but they were also grateful to be alive. Dawn eventually broke, bringing with it a new sense of hope. They spent the day exploring the island, searching for food and fresh water. They found coconuts and berries, which helped sustain them, and they discovered a freshwater stream hidden among the trees. They also found signs of human life, a small camp, and a few tools left behind by whoever had been there before them. With each passing day, their hope of being rescued dwindled, but they refused to give up. They built a shelter to protect them from the elements, and they kept a lookout for any passing ships or planes. They rationed their food and water, making sure they had enough to last as long as possible. Throughout their ordeal, they supported each other, sharing their fears and dreams, their laughter echoing across the deserted beach. Their friendship, forged in the fires of adversity, became their lifeline. One day, after what felt like an eternity, they saw a distant speck on the horizon. At first, it was just a small dot, but it grew larger and larger until it became a ship. With renewed hope, they waved their arms and shouted, but the ship continued on its course, oblivious to their presence. Days turned into weeks, and their hope began to fade once again. But they refused to give up. They continued to build fires and send out distress signals, hoping that someone, somewhere, was looking for them. Then, just when they thought all hope was lost, a miracle happened. A search and rescue team arrived on the island, and they were overjoyed. After what felt like an eternity, they were finally being rescued. They were taken off the island, treated for dehydration and exhaustion, and reunited with their families. Their ordeal had been long and arduous, but they had survived. They had faced the wrath of the Bermuda Triangle and lived to tell the tale. Now, safe and sound, Lisa and Sarah knew that they would never forget their time on the deserted island. It had been a terrifying experience, but it had also been a humbling one. They had learned the true meaning of survival, the importance of friendship, and the strength of the human spirit. They had survived the Bermuda Triangle. And if you liked the video, don't forget to hit like and subscribe for more. This was Adam, and you've been watching your channel, Valley of Knowledge. Stay curious, and see you in the next one.